Picture an American Saturday in 1990. You get dropped off at the mall with 20 bucks and your friends, and you don't leave for 6 hours. 2 floors of stores under one roof. A food court thick with the smell of cinnamon and pizza. A fountain you throw pennies in. The arcade. The movie theater. The department store so big it has its own perfume cloud. It wasn't just shopping. It was where an entire generation of Americans grew up, fell in love, and spent their weekends. Now picture that same mall today. Half the stores are gone, steel gates pulled down. The fountain is dry. The food court echoes. They have a name for these places now, dead malls. And there are hundreds of them, slowly rotting across America with more closing every year. So what really killed the American mall? It wasn't just the internet. That's the easy answer, and it's only part of the story. The real answer runs through an Austrian immigrant with a utopian dream, a tax loophole almost nobody talks about, the death of the American middle, and yes, a website. By the end, you'll understand why the cathedral of American consumer life became a ruin. The shopping mall as we know it has a single father, an architect named Victor Gruen, an Austrian immigrant who, in 1956, designed the first fully enclosed, climate-controlled shopping mall in suburban Minnesota. And here's the twist that haunts this whole story. Gruen didn't set out to build a temple of shopping. He was a socialist who hated American sprawl. He envisioned the mall as a new town center, an indoor public square with shops, yes, but also apartments, schools, medical offices, parks, a walkable European-style community heart for the car-choked American suburb, a place to gather, not just to spend. What got built was half his dream. The shopping, the climate control, the gathering, but none of the housing or civic life. Developers took the part that made money and dropped the rest. Still, for a few decades, the mall genuinely became the town square Gruen imagined, just a commercial one. It was where suburban America, which had no real downtown, went to be among other people. That's the key to everything. The mall wasn't only a store, it was the social center of a country that had bulldozed its actual social centers. So what happened to it? 3 forces. A tax trick that built too many, the gutting of the middle class, and finally, the screen in your pocket. Here's a cause almost nobody names. In 1954, the U.S. government changed the tax code to allow something called accelerated depreciation, a rule that let developers write off the value of a new commercial building extremely fast, creating enormous paper losses that sheltered their other income from taxes. In plain terms, the government accidentally made building brand new shopping centers a phenomenal tax shelter, almost regardless of whether the mall itself was even needed. So, America didn't build malls because demand required them. It built malls because the tax code rewarded building them. Money flooded into new construction, and malls multiplied far beyond what the population could actually support. By the 2000s, the United States had several times more retail space per person than most other countries on Earth. Wildly overbuilt. This is the time bomb under the whole story. America constructed too many malls for tax reasons during the good years. When the good years ended, there were never going to be enough shoppers to fill them all. The collapse was baked in decades before the first one died. The mall was an engine built to run on one specific fuel, a large, comfortable spending middle class. The anchor department stores, Sears, JCPenney, Macy's, were built for middle America, the family with steady income and money for a Saturday splurge. The whole machine assumed that customer existed in huge numbers. Then, over the following decades, that middle began to hollow out. Wages stagnated for the typical family while costs climbed. Wealth concentrated at the top. Shopping split in 2 directions. People with less money went to discount stores like Walmart and Target for the lowest price, and people with more money went to specialty and luxury. The vast, comfortable middle the mall depended on. The people who'd browse Sears and grab dinner at the food court got squeezed from both sides. The mid-tier department store, the mall's beating heart, started dying. And when an anchor store closes, it doesn't just leave one empty box, it pulls the foot traffic out from under all the small stores around it, and the whole mall starts to unravel. The middle class was the mall's fuel, and America slowly ran out of it. And then, only then, onto a mall system already overbuilt by tax law and already starving from a shrinking middle, came the internet. Online shopping delivered the final blow, but notice the order of events. The mall was already mortally wounded before Amazon was ever a threat. E-commerce didn't create the disease. It killed a patient that was already on the floor. But the internet did something crueler than just steal sales. It stole the mall's other job. Remember, the mall was never only about buying things. It was about being somewhere with other people, doing something on a Saturday. The smartphone replaced both halves at once. You could buy anything from your couch, and you could socialize, flirt, kill time, and feel connected without leaving home. The two reasons a teenager went to the mall, to shop and to hang out, both moved onto a 5-inch screen. The mall didn't just lose the transaction, it lost its reason to be a place. And a town square nobody needs to physically visit is just a very large, very expensive empty building. Now, the detail that reframes every dead mall you drive past. You'd think a giant building in a prime location could easily be converted into something useful. Apartments, offices, a hospital. But malls are uniquely, almost diabolically hard to repurpose. And it comes down to a legal ghost. The anchor agreements. The big department stores often owned their own sections or held decades-long contracts with veto power over what the rest of the property could become. So even when a mall is clearly dying, a single dormant anchor store, sometimes a chain that's barely alive itself, can legally block the whole site from being redeveloped. The mall gets frozen, too dead to thrive, too legally tangled to transform. On top of that, the architecture fights you. A mall is a windowless box designed to point inward, away from the world, to keep you in a sealed shopping trance. The opposite of what you want for apartments or offices, which need light and exterior access. Converting one costs a fortune, so instead of being reborn, most just sit there, slowly decaying, as monuments to the exact moment they died. That's why the dead mall has become such a haunting American image. These aren't being torn down and replaced. They're being abandoned in place. And here's the haunting full-circle twist. Victor Gruen, the man who invented the mall, came to despise what it became. Late in his life, he disowned his own creation, horrified that his dream of a walkable, mixed, living community center had been stripped down into a pure machine for selling sneakers, surrounded by an ocean of parking, accelerating the very sprawl he'd hoped to cure. He died, feeling he'd helped build the opposite of what he wanted. But look closely at what's replacing the dead malls today. And Gruen gets a strange posthumous vindication. The successful new developments, the ones thriving where enclosed malls failed, are lifestyle centers and mixed-use districts, open-air streets with shops and apartments and restaurants and offices and public space where people actually live above the stores. In other words, America is slowly, expensively rebuilding exactly what Gruen designed in 1956 before developers threw away half the plans. The mall didn't just die, it's being reincarnated as the thing it was always supposed to be. To be fair, the mall's decline isn't pure tragedy. Online shopping is genuinely more convenient and often cheaper. The overbuilding was a real distortion. America simply had more retail than it ever needed, and some correction was healthy. And the mall isn't universally dead. The best ones in wealthy areas are thriving, packed, and reinventing themselves with experiences you can't get online. Because the one thing the internet still can't deliver is being somewhere with other people. Which is, of course, exactly what the mall was always secretly selling. So the malls that survive are the ones leaning back into Gruen's original idea. Not a place to buy things, but a place to be. The ones dying are the ones that were only ever about the transaction. The lesson the whole story keeps circling back to is the same one as the diner, the porch, the corner store. Americans didn't really lose a place to shop. They lost a place to gather. And they're only now realizing how much they want it back. So the next time you pass one of those dead malls, the cracked parking lot, the faded logo, the dark food court behind the glass, understand what you're actually looking at. Not just a failed business. The ruin of America's accidental town square, built too much because of a tax break, fed by a middle class that disappeared, and finally emptied by the screen that replaced both shopping and gathering at once. The building of a dream its own creator came to hate, and that America is now quietly trying to build again. Maybe the mall didn't die. Maybe we just took it apart to find out which piece we actually missed. And it turns out it was never the stores. So tell me in the comments, what was your mall, the one you grew up in? And is it still alive or dead now? Describe it. Those comments are a time machine. Americans, do you miss the mall or are you glad it's gone? And everyone outside the US, did your country ever do the American-style mega mall or something different? I read every single one. Subscribe. There's a video right here about what really killed the American diner. Same vanishing America, one more empty room.